Yes, as far as SIMA is concerned, we have member mills who are in all five southern states. As far as membership is concerned, Tamil Nadu is our largest base. As far as Tamil Nadu is concerned, over the last 2 weeks or so, our members have started partial operations. We were first allowed to start in the rural areas up to 50% of our capacity. And over the last 10 days or so, those who are exporters who are located even inside corporation and municipal limits, they've also been permitted to start operations. So I would say overall, it would be around anywhere between 30 to 50% that people are running at, those who have started. There are still some who haven't yet decided to start their operations. The primary challenges today are twofold. One, in terms of demand, there has been a real weakening of demand as you possibly expect. Right from the start of this crisis, we've had customers either cancelling orders or deferring orders. This has not shown any sign of rapidly changing. We still have a lot of uncertainty with regard to orders in the pipeline. The other challenge that member mills are facing today is with regard to labor. A lot of the Tamil Nadu textile manufacturing operations are dependent on migrant workers. These migrant workers are typically from UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, and Chhattisgarh, to name the top 3 or 4 states. These workers, as you're aware, for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the lockdown, they were reasonably patient. Our a credit to our member mills, I think most of them, or a large, significant percentage of them, have taken care of these migrant workers well. They have been provided shelter, they've been provided food, they've been provided entertainment, and wages as well. So for the first 5, 6 weeks of the lockdown, most of these migrant workers were quite happy to stay on board. Over the last couple of weeks, there has been some restlessness. There has been communications from the central government based on representations from the home states of these migrant workers, that some of them are requesting to go back, etc. So there has been talk of transport being arranged for these workers, and therefore there has been some restlessness over the last couple of weeks, which the member mills are now dealing with and facing. So like I said, partial operations have started, but these two challenges with regard to demand and with regard to availability of workforce are what we are grappling with now. SIMA, we see ourselves as our primary responsibility is to provide support, services, and license to our members. So in this time of crisis, our first objective was to try and understand what are the pain points that our members are going through. So we had video conferences with our past chairman, we had video conferences with our committee members and special invitees. We also engaged our members in a couple of surveys to find out what the immediate pressure points and pain points were. So one of the first problems that we started encountering, or our members started encountering, was in terms of logistics. As the lockdown happened quite suddenly, a lot of goods that were in transit, a lot of goods that were in ports, these started immediately becoming pain points. So with respect to clearance of goods, with respect to demurrage charges and container retention charges, with respect to representing to various governments for accepting digital documents. Erstwhile, you would need an original certificate of origin, you would need an original bill of lading, etc., to clear goods. So in this period of time, since couriers were not working, since physical documents could not be sent, we had to convince a lot of the importing countries to accept digital documents to clear goods. So in this regard, we worked closely with Texprosil. We also, the Ministry of Textiles formed two committees, one on logistics and one on finance. So we had representation on both committees, and through that committee also we were working on helping our member mills solve this issue of goods that were stuck either in transit or in the ports. As far as the southern states were concerned, the immediate pain points for members were in terms of labor and in terms of power. As far as labor was concerned, there was a guideline issued by the Ministry of Home Affairs on the 29th of March, asking industry to bear full wages or treat these lockdown days as paid holidays. That obviously was something that was very difficult for the industry to accept. While we accept our role as a responsible employer, we also believe that in this type of crisis, industry cannot be expected to bear full wages. So we had sought legal opinions. We had advised our members to declare a layoff. That we felt was fair. One extreme is to say no work, no wages. The other extreme was what the government had recommended, that is to treat these days as paid holidays. So we recommended a middle ground to declare a layoff and pay wages commensurate to about 50% of what a worker would have earned had they worked 26 days. This was a measure that unfortunately we had to take because, in my opinion, this was something that should have either been decided upon by the judiciary or the government or left to individual companies. In light of this strong directive from the government to pay full wages, we had to take these legal measures. As far as power is concerned, again, that was a significant pain point. There were representations to delay or defer payments for the March bills, which became due anywhere between the 7th and the 11th of April. Subsequent to that, we were representing with the various state governments to levy concessional demand charges, that is, not levy full demand charges for the period that we haven't been working. There again, unfortunately, we have had to go the legal route. We have had various state governments take or various state electricity boards take various stands. As far as Tamil Nadu is concerned, the stand is that they will levy full demand charges even for the lockdown period. And they've also levied some power factor penalty and other charges, which industry feels is not in keeping with the challenges that we face today. So there again, SIMA has had to engage legal counsel and file a writ in order to safeguard the industry from the high demand and penal charges. As far as representations to the government are concerned on finance and banking issues, like I said, we are part of the finance committee that the textile ministry has formed, and we've been continuously engaged with the textile secretary as well as city. Two major requests in this area have been consistent with whatever the RBI has come out with. The RBI, in its announcement for industry relief, had given us 10% additional working capital. That is, all companies who enjoyed limits with the working capital limits with banks, the RBI had permitted banks to issue 10% as an ad hoc COVID limit at a concessional 8% interest rate. They had also asked banks to issue a 3-month moratorium for the payment of interest and term loan repayments. Our consistent demand right from day one has been that while this is a good measure, this is not sufficient. 3 months is a period which ends at the end of May. While most companies have not even started operations and some have started partial operations, if you have a long-term loan repayment in June, it is very, very difficult for that company to muster up the cash flows to manage that. Similarly, interest, a 3-month moratorium we feel is not sufficient. We have been advocating for a longer-term moratorium for both interest as well as term loan repayments. And these deferred dues are to be capitalized during the period of the loan. So that has been our fervent request. And with regard to a textile specific request, what we've been asking for is some sort of incentive to boost yarn and fabric exports. At the moment, we have a duty drawback on yarn and fabric exports, but we don't have any other incentives. At one point, we used to enjoy up to 7.5% incentives to export yarn. We currently enjoy a drawback of around 2%. So we feel that if you incentivize yarn exports at this point, it will help the industry to consume the cotton that it's presently holding. If you look at the current cotton crop, the estimate is anywhere between 370 to 380 lakh bales, of which around 100 lakh bales is currently in stock with CCI, with the Maharashtra Federation, with NAFED, etc. So in our view, given that we have lost 6 weeks due to the lockdown, and given that operations will take time to normalize, we feel that the closing stock at the end of this cotton season will be anywhere in the region of 120 to 150 lakh bales. This is an unprecedented closing stock. Typically, to just give you an idea, we'll harbor anywhere between 30 to 40 lakh bales as a season-ending closing stock in a normal period. So we are looking at a closing stock which is anywhere between 3 to 5 times larger than that normal closing stock. In addition to this, given a decent southwest monsoon, next year we will again have anywhere between 350 to 400 lakh bales being produced by the farmers of this country. So if the government needs to maintain its MSP operations, we also need to figure out a way to consume this cotton. I don't expect there to be huge export demand for this cotton, because world over, every cotton producing country is in a state that we are in today, where demand has come down and their cotton crop is largely normal. So if we have to consume this excess cotton at least over the next 18 to 24 months, it's not possible to do it in the next 9 to 12 months. If we are to do it over the next 18 to 24 months, we need to incentivize industry to export cotton yarn and cotton fabric. And in the post-COVID area, I expect there to be some opportunities, whether to take away some business from China or whether to get into newer areas where demand will be better due to the medical and other PPE related applications. So on both these fronts, how do we incentivize exports of yarn and fabric, even if we continue to incentivize exports of made-ups and finished goods? That is very good. But at the same time, even these intermediary products need to go out to take away the pressure on our cotton consumption and cotton stocks. So these are some of the ways that SIMA has been engaging with the members and engaging with the state governments and the central government. We are in fact a representative on the expert committee in the formed by the Tamil Nadu government as well. And we have been engaging with them to for the government to understand how they can relax lockdown norms so that the economy can get kick-started. At the same time, that industry needs to take before we have been discussed quite frequently. We have been following whatever guidelines have been issued by the MHA and the Tamil Nadu government in this regard. We've been frequently communicating with our members with regard to the necessity to safeguard ourselves, because even if one worker is diagnosed with the COVID, it affects the entire ecosystem and the industry. So these are things that we've been sensitizing our members to, and also taking this as an opportunity to engage more frequently with our members. See, unfortunately, I think a lot of the measures were not really directed at industry. I understand that the central government has various priorities at this stage. Industry is not the only person or only sector looking at help at this stage. Everybody is crying out for help. So they've taken on. I think the government has a lot on their hands, and the economic package what we saw unveiled over the 4 to 5 days largely focused on putting some money into people's hands and setting up some safeguards for small businesses, for farmers, and for the salaried class. Apart from that, as far as industry is concerned, there wasn't too much in the package. One thing that was a very welcome initiative was the 30 lakh crore loan and credit guarantee scheme that the government unveiled. I think this will definitely help the MSME sector, and it is something that is of dire need at this stage. I just wish that the implementation will be smooth. There are some concerns being raised as to how the government is going to underwrite this risk, how banks are going to actually roll out this program. So I hope that the spirit under which this program was announced will be kept up, and that it will be rolled out by the banks in line with whatever the government wants them to do. Apart from this, I think larger industry, a lot of our concerns are yet to be addressed. We are still hopeful that the RBI will come out with an announcement shortly. Most of the larger industries' concerns are banking related, like I mentioned to you. Our intention at this stage is to prevent large-scale NPAs. We understand that demand will take some time to normalize. We understand that cash flows will take time to normalize. In this period, the organizations are expected to bear all standing charges, whether it's payment for salaries and wages, payment for demand charges, payment for any of their suppliers and related vendor payments. This is something that is the industry's responsibility, and we are more than willing to take that up. But at the same time, in terms of financial obligations, it is something that is difficult for the industry to be able to fulfill at this time. When there are no cash flows, when there are no operations, to continue to service our debt and to continue to repay some of the long-term obligations will definitely be a major challenge at this point. So that is right from the beginning, SAIMA has been focusing on how to ensure that our members have liquidity. To do that, we need additional working capital. At this stage, it might not be able to provide the margin money or the collateral or the stocks to obtain that additional working capital from banks. So we have been continuously representing to the RBI and to the finance ministry that banks should be told to give higher or sanction ad hoc limits that will provide liquidity for our member bills. That has been the consistent demand. The other consistent demand has been to defer our interest and our term loan installments. Both these measures have been acted upon partially by the RBI. Like I mentioned earlier, they've given banks the directive to sanction 10% ad hoc limits. They've also given direction to the banks to provide a 3-year moratorium for interest and term loan repayments. Our sincere representation has been that this is not sufficient. While these are welcome moves, this is not sufficient. So in order to allow us to survive and sustain this period, which I expect will be anywhere from 9 to 12 months, we need a longer term moratorium and we need additional working capital help. This has been our fervent plea. In fact, even this afternoon, we have a meeting with the CITI, the Confederation of Indian Textile Industry, where they have asked various associations as to what are the pending demands or what further measures do we need from the government. So again, I'm going to highlight these two issues there. So that has been, I think, our single point agenda, and this is something that will not really have a direct bearing on the government's balance sheet. There is no fiscal outflow involved. There is no impact on the government's balance sheet. And I think this is in the bank's interest also, because it's in the bank's interest to avoid a large-scale NPA situation in the textile industry. And I'm sure the banks will be willing to go along with this if the RBI issues such directives. That's an interesting question, and we are grappling with similar challenges. So rather than advice, I can tell you a little bit of what we are doing. Number one, we at the start of this crisis, we wrote to all our stakeholders. We wrote to our suppliers, we wrote to our banks, we wrote to our suppliers, customers, telling them what we can and cannot do. To our suppliers, we've told them we will honor all commitments, we'll honor all contracts. But at the same time, we need some time to do so, because our inflows have been totally affected. We don't have the sufficient cash to make all the payments that we have on our plate. So we have sought time while assuring our vendors and our suppliers that we will keep up all our commitments. As far as our customers are concerned, we've been constantly engaged with them to find out what their situation is. Various states and various countries had different kinds of lockdown measures. So we were in touch with them to understand, do they have orders? Have their customers cancelled orders? When do they think they can restart operations, etc. So that is one thing I think that is very important, to communicate to all your stakeholders as to where you are and what you foresee in the immediate future. The other advice I can give, or other step that we have taken, is a decision that we will only run where there is demand. I don't advise, or I don't personally recommend to run and build up stock in the hope of selling. In this change scenario, we don't really know whether whatever we produced earlier will immediately be saleable. So I think it's better to wait to see what demand emerges and to have some clarity on demand before you take a decision to start producing. The third, obviously, is to look to optimize your costs as much as possible, to reduce your costs as much as possible. This requires a large rethink, because a traditional spinning operation, or even a weaving or a knitting operation, would need to run at a very high productivity level and a very high utilization level. What I mean by that is, you try to keep your machine running at 98% for 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. And while that machine is running, you also try to produce as much as physically possible in that machine, while adhering to your quality parameters. In this scenario, I don't foresee us being able to run at full capacity and at full productivity for at least another 6 to 9 months. So in this kind of rigid scenario, how do you efficiently run your operations is something that every sector will grapple over, and every sector will have different strategies to deal with. So how do I efficiently use my labor? How do I efficiently use my power while at the same time meeting my standing charges without being able to run at full efficiency or full productivity? That is a challenge that every sector will face, and we'll all have to come up with different strategies. It can't be, there is no one solution that fits everybody. We'll have to come out with different strategies to deal with that. So I would say these are some of the recommendations or some of the things that we are doing when we are restarting operations. Has been a priority area for many years. I wouldn't say our presence in the man-made fiber space is insignificant, but like you rightly pointed out, it could be much larger. If you look at world over, the consumption pattern is roughly 30+% cotton, 70-odd% man-made fiber. In India, that's exactly the reverse. About 30-odd% is the man-made fiber consumption, and about 60-odd% is the percentage of cotton in the overall textile and clothing pie. There are 2-3 reasons why this is so. One, cotton, India has always been a traditionally strong country in cotton. We have a large cotton cultivation base, and therefore our industry has kind of evolved natural resource that we definitely, I feel, we have not capitalized on the opportunities in the man-made fiber sector. The reasons for this are 2-3-fold. One, in terms of the availability of raw material. Even today, despite several reforms being passed by the government, man-made fiber is not available in our country at international prices. The reasons are quite intricate and quite politically motivated also to an extent. But let us not do that, because we should be, in my opinion, looking too much into the past. At this stage, we should look at the future and see what best we can do. So I think this is a great opportunity for reform to come to enable man-made fibers for India to become more competitive in the man-made fiber space. The government had partially started on this route by removing the duty levied on PTA, which is a major raw material for the manufacture of polyester. So that was a welcome step. The industry had welcomed that step, which was taken last year. The anti-dumping duty on viscose fiber and viscose yarns, that's something that the industry has always been recommending against. We feel that anti-dumping is not something that should be done in the future. It is a measure that has, outlived its sell-by date. So going forward, anti-dumping measures on raw materials is something that we definitely oppose and we should not encourage. If we are given a level playing field, I think there are definitely opportunities to be tapped in the man-made fiber space. Downstream, once we get the fiber in at competitive prices, downstream we have necessary infrastructure and resources to handle the fiber, to whether to make it into fabric or make it into any other kind of end-use application. So I think we've started down that road, and there is a lot more to be done. And I would, going forward, definitely in terms of SIMA's representations and in terms of cities representations, we will continue to be forceful in this regard, that we should look at growing the man-made fiber sector aggressively. Slightly disagree with you there. In terms of pre-COVID, I think from around December, we were starting to witness a kind of a recovery. So unfortunately, this came at a time, in my opinion, where things were starting to look a little better in terms of demand, in terms of where we were as being competitive in the global market. But obviously, that the COVID crisis has shattered any hopes of a small recovery that we saw. Going forward, textiles, you could call it as an essential, but you could also say that there are a lot of textile applications which are a discretionary kind of a purchase. So to reach any kind of normalcy in demand, I don't think we'll see that anywhere in the next 9 to 12 months. We're looking at possibly middle of 21 by the time we can reach any kind of normalcy. But what effect this will have on consumption is something that that is the first sign that we have to look for. Once retail is allowed to open up in India and world over, what is the kind of consumption patterns that we're going to see is, I think, largely going to dictate how demand emerges and therefore how production emerges. There are a couple of opportunities that I see for us here. One opportunity is that, or one reason to not be a little reassured is that as far as the textile and clothing business is concerned, almost 80% of our overall business is India-based, is based on the consumption of this country. And so far, thankfully, fingers crossed, our efforts at containing this virus seem to have worked reasonably well. So I am hoping that the Indian economy or the Indian consumption pattern grows or comes out of this slightly quicker than the rest of the world. So that is something that I'm hoping will pan out positively. The other is that I think we will see a little bit of an anti-China sentiment post this crisis. Whether that will help us attract investment in order to improve our manufacturing base for textiles and clothing, or whether that will give us an opportunity to supply to certain countries that were erstwhile being supplied to by China. I think these are opportunities to see exactly how much we can benefit. The third, obviously, is in the PPE and masks and other related space. I think there definitely will be new opportunities. How sustainable are these opportunities and how sustainable is the demand for these products? We'll have to wait and see. But already there are quite a few companies, garmenting companies and companies who are doing made-ups who have got into making of PPE. I'm very thankful due to the efforts of the AEPC and Mr. Saktivel. The manufacturing of non-medical masks have now been allowed. So that again, I heard Mr. Saktivel say that it's a $1 billion opportunity in the next 3 months. So if that is to pan out, that is something that, a demand that we didn't have in the past. So it's something that will hopefully supplement some of the things that we have lost. So to answer your question, I think for normalcy to resume, I think it's going to be a long haul. I think it will be 9 to 12 months before we see any kind of demand, normalcy, or consumption reach normal levels. And in the meantime, whatever newer opportunities in terms of markets, in terms of products, that is where we will have to rely on to kind of supplement the lost demand.